You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
I have to tell you, I had a bit of a moment in the kitchen recently. I was just staring at my toaster. Just your standard two-slice metal box, right? And I suddenly had this overwhelming urge to ask it what the weather was like.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I literally opened my mouth to say, hey, toaster, before I realized I have completely lost the plot. It is a box that burns bread. That is all it does.
To be fair, though, given the trajectory we are on right now, give it another 6 months, and I reckon that toaster will probably have an opinion on the weather, the stock market, and your choice of sourdough.
That is exactly what I am afraid of. I actually tried explaining the concept of the cloud to a magpie in the backyard later on, just to sort of regain some sanity. It looked at me with this absolute disdain, like it knew I was just making things up.
Well, the magpie was probably right to judge you. Honestly, trying to explain the cloud is hard enough with other humans, let alone Australian wildlife.
Too right. But look, that feeling of everything getting smarter and weirder all at once, that is exactly what we're here to unpack. We are looking at the massive shifts happening under our feet in the tech world. Welcome to the Vocal Technologist.
It is brilliant to be here, and while you were joking about smart toasters, the reality is that the machinery required to make things smart is getting astronomically expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, we are talking about numbers that barely feel real anymore.
Oh, absolutely. Let us get straight into the money, because my jaw hit the floor when I saw the figures on this Meta deal. So Meta has struck a deal with AMD, and we are not talking about buying a few chips for the office laptops here.
No, this is on a different scale entirely.
We are talking about a deal valued at over $100 billion. That is billion with a B. They are securing 6 gigawatts of AI compute power. 6 gigawatts, I mean, that is enough to power a small country or send Marty McFly back to the future about 5 times over.
It is a staggering amount of power. But, the financial structure of the deal is just as fascinating. To sweeten the pot, AMD agreed to give Meta warrants to buy up to 160 million AMD shares. And the strike price, a penny a share.
Hang on, a penny. I cannot even buy a piece of gum for a penny. You are telling me they are handing over equity for essentially zero cost just to guarantee they get the chips.
That is the level of desperation we are seeing. It is basically a loss leader on a massive corporate scale. They are effectively giving away equity to guarantee supply because, well, if they do not, they get left behind. But if you think that is wild, you need to look at the IPO market. We are staring down the barrel of a financial stress test that I do not think people quite comprehend.
You were talking about the big three getting ready to list, right? Yeah. SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic.
Spot on. But it is not just about them listing. It is about the sheer volume of cash they need to suck out of the system. If they went with standard IPO float percentages, selling maybe 15 to 25% of the company, the numbers just break the calculator.
Break it how? Walk me through the damage.
Based on their current valuations, these 3 companies alone would need to raise somewhere between $432 billion and $576 billion from public investors.
Okay, that is a massive number, but the U.S. market is huge. Surely there is heaps of cash floating around for that.
You would think so, but look at the history. The entire U.S. IPO market, every single company that rang the bell over the last decade combined, only raised $469 billion.
Wait. So you are saying these 3 companies effectively need to eat an entire decade of investment capital in, what, a single quarter?
Precisely. It is a $3 trillion stress test. The market simply does not have that kind of liquidity lying around waiting for a home. So either the system bends, or these companies have to float a tiny, tiny sliver of their stock, maybe 1%.
And if they only slate 1%?
Then you get massive volatility. The price swings would be violent because there are so few shares available to trade. It is a recipe for a very bumpy ride for anyone holding them.
It really feels like we are watching a balloon inflate past its limit. Is this sustainable?
That is the trillion-dollar question. And it ties into a paper that has been doing the rounds called the Global Intelligence Crisis. It paints a pretty grim picture of what happens when this balloon pops.
Yeah, I read the abstract of that. It was cheerful stuff. Something about aggressive AI leading to a massive market crash.
It is what they call the efficiency paradox. The scenario goes like this. We have this aggressive build-out of AI, like the Meta and AMD deal. Productivity skyrockets because the bots are working 24/7. But because the bots are doing the work, unemployment skyrockets too.
So companies are making money hand over fist, but nobody has a paycheck to actually buy their products.
Exactly. It is a credit stress crisis. Companies get hyper-efficient, But the consumer base, the people who actually buy the iPhones and pay for the subscriptions, they go broke. Demand destruction kicks in.
Well, that is not really a hypothetical anymore, is it? I mean, we are seeing the start of it right now. Look at Block. That is Jack Dorsey's company, the one behind Square and Cash App.
A very prime example.
They just announced they are laying off 40% of their workforce. That is over 4,000 people gone. And Dorsey did not even try to hide the reason behind corporate jargon.
No, he was actually quite blunt about it. He explicitly cited AI tools and efficiency.
It is brutal. He is basically saying, we have robots now, we do not need as many of you.
It is what some analysts are calling the engineerification of everything. The idea is that non-technical people can now take on engineering tasks using AI tools, and actual engineers can become full-stack shipping machines.
Full-stack shipping machines. That sounds absolutely exhausting.
It means companies run leaner. The revenue per employee goes through the roof, but the total number of employees crashes. It is a complete reshaping of the entire workforce.
And speaking of companies under immense pressure, let us pivot to Anthropic. Because if Block is cutting costs to survive, Anthropic is fighting a war on two entirely different fronts.
They really are in a sticky situation. On one side, they have got a massive issue with intellectual property theft coming out of China. And on the other, they are in a standoff with the U.S. military.
Let us start with the China thing, because this sounds like a spy novel. Anthropic is accusing 3 Chinese companies, DeepSeek, Moonshot, and Minimax, of distilling their data.
Yes, so Anthropic claims these companies used about 24,000 fraudulent accounts to access Claude, which is Anthropic's flagship model.
And when you say distilling, for those listening who might not be deep in the machine learning weeds, what are they actually doing? You cannot just copy-paste a neural network, can you?
No, you cannot, but you can copy its output. It is what we call knowledge distillation. Think of Anthropic's Claude as a master professor. The Chinese startups are acting like a student secretly recording the professor's lectures.
So they feed Claude a really complex question.
And Claude generates a high-quality, nuanced answer. The startup then takes that answer and feeds it into their own smaller model as training data. They're essentially saying, here's the question and here's the perfect answer. Learn the pattern.
Wow, so they are entirely bypassing the millions of dollars and years of trial and error it took to get Claude to that level of reasoning.
Correct. It allows them to build a model that performs almost as well as the frontier models, but for an absolute fraction of the cost. And Anthropic is furious because they are effectively subsidizing their competitors.
But cannot Anthropic just block them? Just say, no soup for you, and shut the accounts down?
They try, but it is digital whack-a-mole. Anthropic claims these companies use 24,000 different accounts. You ban one, 5 more pop up. It is a classic asymmetric warfare tactic.
Right. And then on the other side of this war, you have the Pentagon. Now, usually tech companies love a juicy defense contract, but Anthropic is playing hard to get here.
It is less about playing hard to get and more about sticking to their principles, which is causing a lot of friction. The U.S. Department of Defense is demanding that Anthropic drop its restrictions on lawful use.
Lawful use. I mean, that sounds harmless on the surface, but what does it actually mean in practice?
Currently, Anthropic's terms of service ban using their AI for things like mass domestic surveillance or autonomous weapons. The Pentagon is saying, we need those capabilities, and if you want our money, you have to let us use your tools for everything we do legally.
And the Pentagon does not take no lightly, do they?
Not at all. They are literally threatening to label Anthropic a supply chain risk.
Oof. That sounds like boring bureaucratic talk, but I bet it is actually the kiss of death.
It absolutely is. If they get that label, it essentially blacklists them from government work. Any other company working with the military would have to certify they are not using Anthropic's models in their stack. So Anthropic is being squeezed. They're trying to be this safe, ethical AI company, but China is stealing their homework, and the U.S. military is threatening to crush them if they do not hand over the keys to the armory.
Talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. It is fascinating to watch the geopolitics of code play out in real time like this.
It is the new arms race. Code is a strategic asset now, plain and simple.
Well, speaking of code, let us lighten the mood a little bit. I want to talk about something called vibe coding.
I love this term. It sounds ridiculous, but it is actually a significant trend coming out of China right now.
It sounds like something a teenager does on social media. Look, this vibe coding, mate, but what is it actually?
It is essentially non-coders building software based on vibes or loose ideas, using AI to do all the heavy lifting. There's this explosion of apps in China built by people who do not know a single line of Python or JavaScript.
Give us an example. What does a Vibe app look like?
There was a lighting app that became a top seller on the App Store over there. It was built by a designer who just described the vibe or mood they wanted the lights to evoke. They did not write the logic for the color shifts or the hardware integration. The AI did all of that.
So you just tell the AI, I want an app that makes people feel cozy, and it spits out a working application.
Pretty much. And this connects to a broader shift we're seeing in the West, too. Have you seen what is happening with Claude Code?
Yeah, this is the new tool that writes code for you directly in your terminal. But I heard it is fundamentally changing how developers actually build things.
It is. There was recent analysis showing that Claude Code prefers to build custom implementations entirely from scratch rather than using existing libraries or tools. It is the not invented here syndrome, but fully automated.
Wait, is not the golden rule of coding, do not repeat yourself? Why would it rebuild the wheel every single time?
Because for an AI, typing out code is instant and free. It does not have lazy developer syndrome. It is actually easier for the AI to write a function perfectly tailored to your specific problem than to try and shoehorn in a generic library from the internet.
Right. And you also mentioned Cloudflare has something called code mode now.
Yes. Cloudflare is giving these AI agents an entire API in just 1,000 tokens. It means the AI can understand and interact with their whole system almost instantly. It's making coding so much cheaper and faster.
Which brings us to a massive legal headache. You mentioned the ship of Theseus problem regarding open source software. Walk me through that.
Okay. So the whole open source movement is built on licenses. You can use my code, but you have to credit me or you have to keep your modified version open. But here's a massive loophole. If an AI reads your code, learns the logic of how the algorithms work, and then rewrites the entire thing from scratch using completely different syntax, has it violated your copyright?
I mean, technically it is new code, but it does the exact same thing.
Exactly. It is the ship of Theseus. If you replace every single plank of wood in a ship, is it still the same ship? If an AI rewrites every line of your software to achieve the identical result, is it still your software?
That basically destroys the foundation of the open source economy. If the license does not stick, the protective moat around your project is gone.
Which is why the smart money is moving to tests. In a world where writing code is abundant and basically free, the value is not in writing the software itself. It is in verifying that it actually works in production. There is a saying going around the industry right now: tests are the new moat.
So the code itself is free, but knowing the code works without crashing the server is where the money is.
Precisely.
Now, while code is getting cheaper, the way computers see the physical world is getting expensive again. We have to talk about Apple.
Ah, yes. Tim Cook and his visual intelligence push.
It sounds very Apple, does it not? But it seems like they are finally making a big move on hardware that is not just a phone in your pocket.
That is the grand plan. Cook is pushing hard for wearables. We are talking new AirPods with cameras, smart glasses. But the key is that these devices use cameras and sensors to constantly understand the environment around you.
So it is not just asking Siri what the capital of Peru is. It is pointing your glasses at a restaurant across the street and asking, is this place any good?
Exactly. It is physical AI. It is entirely about context. The AI sees what you see. It is a huge leap from just a chatbot sitting in a text window on your laptop.
And there's a rumor floating around that connects this back to the money talk we had earlier, OpenAI and Amazon.
This is a really juicy one. The rumor is that Amazon might be investing $50 billion into OpenAI.
$50 billion. Okay, that is half the Meta deal we talked about, but still a monumental amount of cash.
It is, and the speculation is that OpenAI might be building custom models specifically for Amazon's devices.
Like a smarter Alexa. Because
Okay.
let us be honest, Alexa has not really gotten much smarter in the last 5 years.
She is definitely due for a major upgrade. If Amazon can plug OpenAI's reasoning engine into the millions of Echo devices already sitting in people's homes, that is an absolute game changer. It brings that visual intelligence and real conversational ability directly into the living room.
It really feels like everything is converging right now.
Yeah.
The huge sums of money, the cheap code, the physical hardware. But if you think that is futuristic, hang on to your hats, because we have some proper sci-fi stuff to get through to finish up.
This is always my favorite part.
Yeah.
What have you got for us?
Let us start with smell.
Smell.
Yeah. Scent in silico. Researchers are using AI to digitize smell.
That is actually one of the final frontiers for digitizing the human senses. I mean, we have done sight with cameras and screens. We have done sound with microphones and speakers. Touch is getting there with haptic feedback. But smell has always been incredibly difficult, almost impossible to map.
Imagine sending a smell over the internet. You could literally smell the bakery before you order the croissant on an app.
Or smell the burning coast before you even get to the kitchen, in your case.
A low blow. But seriously, the implications for things like perfumery or even medical diagnosis, imagine a phone smelling diseases. The applications are huge.
Absolutely huge. It is all about mapping molecules to human perception. If AI can finally crack that code, it opens up a whole new layer of reality that we can manipulate digitally.
Speaker of manipulating reality, did you see the name of Google's new image generation model?
I did. You really have to laugh.
Nano Banana too. I mean, who names these things? It sounds like a terrible pre-workout smoothie.
It is a very funny name for a very serious piece of tech. It is their latest image generation model, incredibly fast and very accurate. But honestly, what is more interesting to me is the spin-off project from Google's Moonshot division. It is called Tara.
This is the laser thing, right?
Yes. City-scale laser internet.
That just sounds cool, straight out of the box. Laser internet.
It is essentially replacing traditional fiber optic cables with invisible beams of light traveling through the air. They are actively transmitting 25 gigabits per second over 10 kilometers using nothing but light beams.
So no digging up the roads for months to lay cables.
Exactly. It is absolutely perfect for cities where digging infrastructure is too expensive or physically difficult. It is literally data traveling on light. It is very sci-fi.
Incredible. And from giant lasers across cities to tiny pills. We have to mention the smart pills.
This is a phenomenal breakthrough in medical tech. These are capsules you swallow like normal medication, but they are highly robotic. They actively travel through your digestive system.
And they can take biopsies on the way down?
Yes, they can snip little samples of tissue or even deliver drugs to a specifically targeted area. So instead of flooding your entire body with heavy medication, a little robot pill drops the payload exactly where the problem is located.
It is like the magic school bus, but real.
And hopefully with less shouting from the kids.
Now, to wrap up this section, I want to go from the micro, the pill, to the absolute macro, space.
Data centers in orbit.
Right. Companies are serially looking at putting servers in space. Why? Is it just for the nice view?
It is partly about solar power, which is obviously abundant up there. But the really interesting angle, the one that companies are looking closely at, is regulation. It is the ultimate offshore account for data.
Ah, the legal loophole.
Precisely. If you have a massive data center floating in international orbit, who actually governs it? If that server is hovering over a country that has strict data privacy laws, but the server is technically in space, does that country have any say over what happens on it?
It creates a massive legal gray area.
It does. It avoids land use regulations, it completely slashes cooling costs because space is naturally cold, and potentially it avoids taxes. But it opens up a huge Pandora's box of sovereignty issues. Who polices the cloud when the cloud is actually way above the clouds?
Man, my head is spinning. We have gone from $100 billion chip deals to Chinese vibe coders to lasers beaming the internet, and now we have pirate servers in space.
It is a lot to take in for sure. It feels like the pace of innovation is accelerating every single week.
So what does this all mean for us, for the listener? Are we just holding on for dear life?
You know, it is very easy to feel that way. We see all this exponential growth, the money, the computing power, the crazy new capabilities. But I always like to remind people of the S-curve.
The S-curve.
In technology, things often look like they are shooting straight up. That is the exponential phase. But eventually, every single technology follows an S shape. It starts slow, shoots up dramatically, and then eventually plateaus as it matures and becomes commonplace.
So the real question is, where are we on the S right now?
Exactly. Are we at the bottom, just getting started? Are we in the middle of the crazy vertical climb? Or are we nearing the pop, where things start to settle down? With AI, everyone is betting trillions of dollars that we are still at the bottom. But history suggests that eventually gravity always kicks in.
That is a brilliant thought to leave you all with. Well, while we wait for gravity to kick in, I'm going to go see if I can vibe code myself a sandwich. Or at the very least, check if my toaster has achieved sentience and started a blog yet.
If it starts asking for crypto to toast your bread, just unplug it from the wall?
Solid advice as always. Thanks for tuning in to The Vocal Technologist. We will be watching the skies, the markets, and our kitchen appliances for you.
It has been a pleasure.
Catch you in the next one.
Spoken Tech for your ears.